From the bright lights of the MGM Grand to the white ring of Saitama Super Arena, from soccer kicks to elbows, I'm Rich, he's Nate, and we're trading blows. Nate, it's been a long time coming, and I'm very excited to have this out finally.
Yeah, it's been quite a process to get it going, but we're finally here, so
no doubt about it.
Get after it.
100%. And you know what? Nate and I, long-time close friends. We've been watching fights for decades, and we've been talking about fights for decades. And what we're trying to do here, man, is we're just trying to bring that, familiarity. You're on the couch with us. We're trying to do that for you, and you know what I mean. Like, this is all we ever do anyway, so might as well record it. You know what I mean? So this is what we're trying to do.
Been watching these fights for about 20 years. Pride fighting, UFC fighting, Bellator last night, of course. And just want to talk about it with you like we talk about it with each other and just start recording it.
Yeah, 1,000%, man. And I want to thank everybody for checking it out. So last night, Bellator 206, Nate.
What'd you think of the card? What'd you think of the fights?
Dude, I gotta tell you, man, I was very excited, man. I really enjoyed it. I was dead wrong. I was dead wrong about that Rampage Vanderlei fight, and we can get into it like right away. You know what I mean? But
fight was a circus,
dude.
It was ridiculous.
I had such a great time with that, man. I mean, here's the thing, man. Here's the thing. I mean, we can talk about the other fights, whatever, but Rampage Vanderlei, I swear to God, I thought it was just going to be standoffish, and you kind of got that in the first couple minutes of the fight, and I'm like, well, this is going to be the whole fight. You know what I mean? Like, Ram's
it was.
Right? Ram's going to throw 2 punches, Vanderlei's going to kind of run around, and then towards the end of the first round, when Ram put it on him a little bit, and put his hands up like, this is what we're going to do? You're going to run away from me? Like, I was like, this is exactly it, dude. This is exactly what I'm looking for, man. And they went at it. And, like, great knockout by Rampage. Rampage, to come in at 245, he didn't look as fat as I thought he was going to look, dude. He didn't look that bad.
No, he didn't. They both looked, way past their prime, obviously, but they were putting it on the line. They were getting after it. Silva wanted to mix it up. He wanted to get it going. He wanted to throw the dukes.
Okay, yeah. There was no takedowns to be had. It kind of seemed like Ram's whole strategy was kind of get the 2 punches in and kind of like put him against the cage and work that clinch a little bit.
Yeah, he seemed to be much more prepared than Silva. Silva was just kind of just dancing around, trying to throw haymakers whenever he could.
You still throw those hooks that, I love it. But you know what, dude? I'm not going to lie to you, man. Once a sandstorm hit and Vanderlei comes out, dude, I got hyped, dude. I mean, I know it's whatever. I know it's a total circus at this point, but, dude, that just gets me hyped. The sandstorm.
It was fun.
Oh, it was fun.
It was fun. It was exciting.
But here's the thing.
I mean, we knew it was going to be exciting, and it was exciting. So, it certainly wasn't a letdown by any means, but to see, I don't know, he took a couple big shots there, and to see Silva like the first big one when he went against the cage, I thought it was over then.
Oh yeah.
And then he went going, for a while after that. To see him take those shots at this point, is a little cringeworthy for me. But he's out there getting big money. He wants to fight. Let him fight. No one's making him fight. He wants to make a lot of money. He wants to go out there and settle the score with Jackson. Let him go do it. So, I'm happy for him. Like, I wish it worked out better for him. But, I'm happy Jackson got the win, too.
Oh, well, that's 2-2. But, Vanderlei said he got $1 million for that. Got $1 million to fight Rampage. And that's easy money.
Well, that's just it. I mean, is it worth that? I mean, what is it worth? You're going out there. You can get knocked out. You've had a lot of knockouts. I mean, you've had a lot of concussions. This isn't good if you get knocked out. This wasn't good for him to go out there and take that punishment tonight or last night. But, he got $1 million. So, I don't know.
No, well, I mean...
it's hard to say. And that answer is probably different for everybody. For every fighter in every different situation. So, I hope he's okay. I hope things work out for him.
Well, you know what it is? Here's the bottom line. I mean, would you watch a fifth one?
I didn't want to see a fourth one, but I'm happy. I
don't want to see a fourth one. Yeah.
I'm happy I did. I'm happy I saw it. Happy it happened. I mean, it was entertaining.
Well,
I guess I didn't. I didn't want to see what I saw happen, but it did. So,
Well, I'm happy that I'm happy that actually was a finish. I'm happy there was some action involved. But bottom line is, if they do a fifth one, in my mind, and
I'll watch it.
Exactly.
I'll watch it 100 times if they fight. Doesn't mean I don't want to see them fight anymore, but I'll watch if they fight.
Right. I mean, yeah. There's a whole other argument of like maybe Vanderlei and Ram should really hang it up. But if they did a fifth one, I would do it.
They should hang it up.
Right.
I mean, where's your argument for that? They should both hang it up. Those guys are great.
Oh,
They're legends. They're a couple of my favorite fighters ever. But I don't want to see them go out there and get beat up like that. Oh, not anymore. Not at this point. They're too old for that.
No, you're not.
I can go back and watch their fights. They have lots of fights that we can go back and watch. Let's go watch them. I don't need them to go in there and get beat up.
No, 1,000%. But what I would do though, if you happen to want to do a fifth fight, let's say the fifth fight, really quick, I would do it in Rizin, man. Do it in Rizin. Bring back the Pride rules. Let them get juiced to the goddamn gills.
Awesome.
Let it be the final fight of them too. You know what I'm saying?
Let them get juiced.
You're right. They're not going to juice. They're going to let it all go out there in Rizin, Japan. White ring. The Japanese would go absolutely bananas for it. They'd be all about it. And as a fifth fight, dude,
that'd be fantastic.
That'd be a really cool thing. And you know what? They're going to be 40-something. Ram's probably going to be 260, whatever. I don't know.
If they can bring back any kind of resemblance of Pride and that dynamic that they had there, that'd be fantastic. To have that ring with those rules, with the way the crowd was, how it's just a completely different atmosphere and situation than the UFC. And both are fantastic. Not that one's better than the other, but they're both fantastic. But it'd be great to have something like that again.
Oh, 1,000%. What I want to talk about, though, is the two 145-pound prospects that we saw last night. You heard
Higo and Pico?
Well, you got Gaston Bolanos, which is
those guys, yeah.
Yeah, the Dream Killer.
Yeah.
The Dream Killer. And you know what? You see him with the spinning elbow and the whole nine. See, this is and you're like, this guy's I'm not saying he's a one-trick pony, but it's like, obviously he's on the main card because he has a viral knockout on the internet. How good is this guy for real? And this dude has ridiculous power. Like, this Gutierrez had nothing for him all game. It was a second round.
Well, what about this guy? What do you think about this guy Gutierrez rushing him right after they touch gloves like that? Like, they go out there and touch gloves, and he just goes right at him.
Yeah, well,
like,
I mean,
like all in one motion. What do you think of that? Like, is that a punk move, or is that a good move?
Super punk move. Super punk move.
A punk move, right? I mean, what's the deal with that?
I personally, if you want to touch gloves, it's whatever, but I think you're leaving yourself out there. But everyone knows honorably, don't be a punk like that. I've seen worse, obviously. You've seen guys pretending and then hitting the guy, but...
Yeah, that's ridiculous. Well, also, you also have these guys who touch gloves after every round, and I don't really know about that either, but, I mean, that's not as bad, obviously.
100%. But this Bolaños, he put it on him, dude. I mean, the power. There's not many guys I can think of at the 145, 135 situation that have...
Well, that guy Gutierrez looked silly. He was like flopping like a fish, stumbling around.
Oh, man.
Falling down.
The left hook behind the ear, precision, counter, very, very nice.
And that wasn't a good fall when he fell.
Oh, no, not at all.
When he fell up right on top of his head, it looked.
It did. And no, he was clean out, and it was to me. I've seen Bolaños fight, especially with that spinning back elbow, whatever you want to say. But an exciting prospect, clearly at 145. They definitely got something going in this lightweight division, which leads me to the kid that, I'll be honest with you, the hype is too ridiculous for him. But I saw Aaron Pico. This kid, Aaron Pico, he's got the world by the ball sack already, and this is his fourth fight. This is fourth fight, and the hype was just too much for him. I mean, you're debuting pro debut in Madison Square Garden. Clearly, I mean, I don't blame the kid. You know what I mean? But this kid, I mean, he's wrestling at 13. He's boxing at 15. He's got some ridiculous. I mean, he's winning. He's
a great fighter.
Great fighter. Golden gloves. This and that.
Lots of potential.
Unbelievable, dude.
Higo was good too. It was a good fight.
Dude, it was an awesome fight.
They're cats and dogs. It was great.
I love that fight.
Higo is a game competitor for that.
Dude, do you now? Obviously, he's got everything. This kid's got the hands. He's got the wrestling. And I really hope that Bellator, with a guy like Bolaños and obviously Pico, they're obviously, I mean, you got Jay Glazer calling him the LeBron of the MMA. I mean, they got to pump the brakes a little bit on it with the kid. He's obviously really, really
I can't
good.
blame the kid for that.
No.
I agree.
I'm not blaming the kid, but I mean, can we just? I mean, seriously. I mean, he's on the main card. He's on these big cards. You debuted him in Madison Square Garden. My problem is that he's obviously got a lot of talent. He's got a lot of pedigree there. You got Freddie Roach in his corner. He's got. I mean, come on. But
does it get any better?
Does it right? Exactly. But my problem is, are you handling this prospect the right way? I mean, if you look at how Michael Venom Page in the heavy, the welterweight, lightweight, welterweight, middleweight contender prospect for Bellator, and they keep putting them in cans. Like, they're not, finally now with this new tournament.
You see that sometimes, though. I mean, we see great fighters fighting these cans. I mean, like we get to Khabib a little bit later. A lot of those guys he fought, early on were cans. He's fought some good fighters, recently, but a lot of those guys were cans. I
just feel that when you have a league like Bellator that is definitely top heavy and not as, I mean, you got guys debuting. You know what I mean? You got like
the resources that the UFC have. Right. I mean, like, they don't have the assets to really put together that kind of strategy. I mean, they're kind of seems like they're going up the seat of their pants, card to card, trying to piecemeal it.
Well, Coker
whereas like the UFC, they seem to be planned out, a year to a year and a half out at a time. Whereas Bellator doesn't seem to have the assets to be able to formulate that.
Well, I think they're owned by Viacom. They do have assets and they can definitely compete. It's a matter of a talent pool. Like, when, the brand recognition of UFC, hey, I'm a UFC fighter versus I'm
that's what I mean. I mean, the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't have enough great fighters to create strong divisions and strong rivalries within divisions like we see in the UFC right now with the 155-pound weight class we have.
The 145-pound weight class. The exact weight class these guys are in. That's a Shark Tank in UFC, and I'd like to see either one of these guys up there. You know what I mean?
4 or 5 strong fighters in those divisions. Mm-hmm. There aren't 4 or 5 strong fighters in any of those divisions in Bellator. There are 2 or 3 at best. And they're good fighters. Like last night, we had a great fight. Those guys are good fighters, but there aren't as many of them, and there aren't enough of them.
Well, I agree. I just don't want this kid. Seems to be, he's the new prodigy. It would just, you have to really keep an eye on it. I'm really worried about how they're handling him going forward. I don't want the kid to get burnt out. I don't want the kid to, you don't want to push the kid too much, but you also don't want to give him, crap matches. This wasn't a crap match. They're doing it the right way, and I'm happy to see it. I just think that, when you got Jay Glazer, like, I'll go back to it. You're calling him LeBron James at MMA. Like, what are we talking about, guy? Like, what are you even saying? Why they should have cut the recording right there. Took you off
pretty
early
for that, but I have no problem hyping guys up and maybe even inflating them more than they deserve. But let's not do it too early. Let's make sure that we're picking the right spots. And here they are. This new kind of semi pay-per-view. I don't really know exactly what kind of pay-per-view it was last night, but but they're like hyping the kid up. I mean, should Glazer be doing that? Maybe he's wrong.
No? I mean, I'm not saying he's not that good, and I don't want to keep harping on it. But the bottom line is, I just think that there's hype.
I would say it's an overstatement,
hyperbole,
but he's good
beyond belief. So I'm happy for the kid. I hope that either one of these guys continues to move up, and we're going to see something great out of either one of them, Pico, either guy, Bolaños. And you know what? As soon as they become free agents, I want UFC throw the book at him, bring him into the Shark Tank, because that that division, the 145-pound division, is just killers. And if this kid's really that good, you know what I'm saying? Let's find out, because that's where you're going to find out if you want. You can be the Bellator champion at 145. You still got absolute murderers across the pond, and this is what we need to do. But we're not going to get involved with that. But so the super fight, Nate, the super fight.
Yeah.
Mousasi at 185, Red King, McDonald, 170-pound champion, moving up, trying to be that champ. People think it's easy. People think it's easy to be a champ, Nate. They think
everybody
it's easy.
wants to do it now.
They think it's easy. It's just something they want to do.
Rory, though, good for Rory. He went for it. I applaud him.
Oh, 1,000%.
It's awesome.
But
it's awesome he went for it.
Oh yeah, but dude, all I saw was a much smaller man getting bullied.
He got beat up
right off the jump street, Nate. Right off the jump.
I give him all the credit in the world for going for it. I love Rory McDonald. He was in one of the best fights the sport's ever had with Robbie Lawler. Everyone knows about it. One of the most courageous things you'll ever see. It wasn't a good night for him last night. He looked desperate when he was going for the guard early in the second round.
Yeah, try to pull that snake guard.
Yeah. From there, it was just kind of textbook ground and pound for Mousasi.
Dude, he got on top.
Pound him until he opens a guard, pass the guard, and he went from full mount. He went from half guard to full mount within 5 or 10 seconds, and from there he just opened up on him, lit him up. That was it.
And from the stand up, Rory had. I mean, the whole first round was just huge jabs to the face. You know what I mean? Cross to the face, the kicks. He really had nothing.
Relentless.
It was relentless. Mousasi. I mean, this is his 7th fight in a row winning. When you count his UFC record going into his free agency move, this is 7 fights in a row for Mousasi, and he's done it.
Great fighter,
dude.
Well, he has wins over all sorts of great fighters, and some of them were past their prime for sure, but he has wins over great fighters in their prime too.
Killers, and
absolutely,
and McDonald.
I mean, he beat Dennis Kang in his prime. He beat Bablu Sobral in his prime. Mm-hmm. Those guys are great fighters,
dude. He's really a big fish in a small pond right now, going over there. I feel. But obviously, he's going to reign supreme. He got big money going over there. You know what I mean? They got to build a division somehow. You can't just keep, you know what I mean? Obviously.
I can't blame him.
No, definitely not. And Rory, here's the thing about Rory now. Rory's supposed to fight in this, welterweight Grand Prix tournament they got going on. He's in the first round. So, when's that fight going on? Because all I saw was a dude get mishmashed last night. I mean, he's got to... How long is this going to be before he actually can get back in there and fight? Is this going to...
Or got mangled last night.
Yeah. This is his 3rd loss in his last 4 fights, okay? And he got beat up. And honestly, you can kind of blow on his face at this point and it'll open him up. I mean, the scar tissue, like I said, he has a hole in his face where his nose should be. I'm surprised he can breathe. You know what I mean? It's really a bad situation for him. But
and that fight really didn't get off the ground until the second round. I mean, the first round had a lot of small action, but nothing really significant. Both guys kind of stayed busy, but it wasn't really anything to write home about until the second round, and Rory really seemed determined to take it to the ground once the bell rang and just went for broke to get into guard.
Yeah, he tried to do that spin.
And that was a little surprising how determined he was to get there.
Well,
and because once he was there, Mousasi just dominated him.
Yeah, well, when you spend the first 5 minutes taking a huge, 35 jabs to the face, and you have nothing to say, hands to the face. You know what I mean? He had nothing. I
guess you got to try something different, right?
Yeah, you got to change it up. You know what I mean? And they had the bigger man on you, and I expected Rory maybe to look a little bit bigger out there, but Mousasi's won titles and won fights at 205. So, I mean, he's a big man. So, I mean, you're talking about this is not...
He's a bigger guy going down to 185, whereas Rory's obviously the smaller guy going up,
Well, I'm looking forward to it. I mean,
I guess I said the obvious.
Yeah. Well, nevertheless. So, yeah, man, so... Awesome, great event. I mean, this day zone situation.
Yeah, it was a great event.
I mean, this day zone, they're really trying to be some kind of sports app because, from what I understand, they paid Top Rank or one of these major boxing promotions $1 billion to be their exclusive platform. So they're giving out big money. I mean, Bellator or Viacom got paid for this to be on this DAZN, and whatever. It seemed like a clean app to me, man. I don't know. That's fine. To me, it's kind of like. Why isn't it on TV in any way? Why is it on a real pay-per-view? I mean, I don't mind paying $10, but I mean, why isn't it on real pay-per-view? It's kind of like for a layman who doesn't really understand. I'm going to pay for it, but if you don't really know, let me check out this Bellator. Oh, it's not on TV. Oh, it's not pay-per-view. It's on my phone. Yeah, I'm good. You know what I mean? People are going to probably get turned off automatically, I would think, from that, but maybe I'm wrong.
I agree. I think you are cutting your audience pretty slim at that point because most people don't access it that way. I mean, I would have never thought if I didn't know people who, watched it, like you and whoever else. I mean, I wouldn't think to do that. You go and you look on your DirecTV pay-per-view or whatever it is, and if it's there, it's there. If not, you're like, well, where is it? Yeah. What's going on?
Yeah. I mean, where is it? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But whatever. Listen, they're getting paid. This could be the thing. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I'm an old school guy. But when you got plenty, here's the thing too, in about the Bellator promotion, they didn't promote this card well enough, in my opinion. Anyway, where was the? They have a ceremonial weigh-in, but you have Rampage and Van. with serious real beef. You got your first ever super fight, and I gotta seek out content from them. I feel like it wasn't out there enough to really promote it, and especially it being on Days In or whatever whatever the hell this was. It was like all the rest of the other events were on regular television, or they had like maybe 1 or 2 actual pay-per-views, but it was all like Paramount Network, Spike Network. So me going in, I'm like, all right, yeah, I'll just go to Spike or whatever. Oh no, like what's going on? And after and it's all on their thing. Oh, it's Daisy or whatever. Like, I just think it's I don't know. Again, maybe I'm wrong. I just think it's okay. I think it hurts the product. I don't know. We'll see. I could be dead wrong. Anyway, so. In the news, Conor signs a 6-fight deal, which would probably, I mean, does he fulfill it? Does he take, is he gonna? He obviously got paid big money. He was talking all that crap that he wants like he wants a taste of the UFC as like part of his contract. I doubt that happened, but I mean, obviously my man got paid. It is what it is. I'm happy to see this. Actually, it locks him in.
Well, that's great. I mean, the guy holds more leverage than any other fighter in the sports history, for sure.
Right.
And I could see him getting what he wants from Dana, or getting what he wants from the UFC. I don't really know. I think as time goes on, we'll see. I'm sure this is going to pull huge numbers. We'll see what the next one pulls. What if he just goes out there and it's not good for him at all? And we'll talk about this in a bit, but what if it's just worst case scenario for him? And then he goes out and loses another one. Is he going to have leverage then? I don't think so. But what if he goes out there and he just wastes Khabib, and he wastes the next guy, and wastes the next guy after that? He goes out and he wastes Khabib, he wastes Woodley, he wastes whoever else. Then what?
Yeah.
I mean, the guy's going to be pulling more money than the sport's ever had. The guy's going to have leverage like we've never seen. The guy might get a piece of whatever he wants at that point. But we'll see. I mean, I don't know. Those are big ifs. If he beats Khabib, if he beats whoever's next, whoever that would be, GSP, Woodley.
Oh yeah. I look at it like a NFL contract. You know what I mean? Where you sign a guy. Look at Le'Veon Bell. You sign a guy, you get him his guaranteed money. So right now he's getting his guaranteed money Khabib fight. It's
a tragedy. That whole situation in Pittsburgh is a tragedy on both sides. Both sides, by the way.
Oh yeah. I mean, we're not going to get that, of course.
This isn't a football show. We could talk about football and other sports. This could be about football, too, but it's not. It's about the best sport in the world, so let's just keep it there.
Yeah. But it's like that, though, where an NFL player, not begrudging them, need to make their money. They sign a deal, and they want to keep renegotiating. I think this 6-fight deal is going to be the last deal you're going to see Conor really sign. How many more fights is he really going to be doing? If he actually fulfills 6 fights over the course of the next 6 years or so, or whatever, huge, big pay money fights, that's it. I mean, that'd be it. And I find you're totally right. If he goes out there and he mauls Khabib, and then maybe he goes up to Tyron, or maybe he does something, who knows? If he keeps wasting dudes in big ways, then yeah, I could totally see him saying, you know what? Forget it. Let's throw that contract out. We're renegotiating, or I'm not coming back.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
As he should at that point.
Yeah. Because
he's worth more at that point.
Yeah, 1,000%. So, Joanna Jędrzejczyk and Valentina Shevchenko are going to fight for the 125-pound vacant title. Nico Montano, after winning it during her tough tournament where they have the premiere of the division itself last year, never got into the ring at that point. It was always injuries with this chick, and finally she was hospitalized after a brutal weight cut, which obviously I hope she's okay, but it's
unfortunate.
She and Dana stripped her, man. I mean, obviously, I would think that if Nico's ready to go, the winner of this should fight her as a number 1 contendership. But when you win your title, when you win the inaugural title off of a tough tournament and don't get in the ring for a year, I think they're more than patient enough with her. So, this is going to be an exciting matchup. I think this Joanna against Valentina is going to be just like Mousasi McDonald. You got a girl moving up. Valentina's a bigger girl. We'll see how that goes. But that's going to be an exciting fight.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you have 3 of them there vying to be champ, I mean, you have a little triangle there, so you'll get some good fights out of those 3.
They're building a good stable at 125. It's going to be fun. Wonder Boy calls out Lawler for a 2019 bout on Twitter. I think it's a perfect matchup for both guys, and I really hope Lawler takes him up on it, man. If Lawler's even ready to go, I don't know what's going on with Lawler.
Well, that's kind of what I was wondering. Is I was a little surprised. Why is Wonder Boy calling out Lawler? Because Lawler doesn't really seem. I mean, he's in the mix, but he's kind of on the outside looking in right now. So why are you calling him out? Why aren't you calling out somebody else?
Well, because he's not going to get a title fight after fighting Tyron twice. He's not. Colby's waiting for Tyron. That's that. And Lawler,
No, I agree.
an exciting fighter. Name. I think it's a good fight.
He's
for
a
Wonder
name.
Boy.
It would be great to see. It would be great to see.
And I hope
Wonder
Lawler
Boy's
knocks him
great.
out.
He's a great fighter. They're both great fighters. I mean, to me, even though, to me, it seems like Lawler's closer to the end of his career than Wonder Boy, and I think they're about the same age, actually. Like, I think Wonder Boy might even be older. I could be wrong about that.
When we're talking about fighting in Lawler years, I mean, that guy's, put in work and wars.
Well, the guy was fighting in the UFC when he was like 21 years old.
Yeah.
And the guy's been in a lot of really legendary fights.
Oh, 1,000%. And I think it's a good man. I mean, Lawler's what? He's number 5. He's not out of the top 10 by any means. I think he's like top 5 ranked still anyway, as he should. So perfect opportunity. He's fighting right around the rank and name fight, and I hope it goes down. I haven't heard a response from Lawler, so I hope that's the case. But Tyron Woodley, in his last fight with Till, dislocated his thumb, tore his ligaments. So he has to undergo surgery in mid-October. That puts him out of the running for this Colby Covington fight that people have been talking about, because they still want a main event for 230. People thought that was going to be it. I guess not. And, Tyron, he's just going to go away for 6-7 months. But on the flip side, he's out here talking like he's going to fight Conor next. I mean, this is what Tyron does. I mean, like, Tyron, this is exactly what Tyron does.
We can't blame Tyron, though.
No.
Tyron is trying to find great fighters to fight because he is a great fighter. He is near the end of his prime, near the end of his career for all intents and purposes. He needs to have big fights with big fighters and win them. He needs to fight St. Pierre. He needs to fight the winner of Khabib and Conor. He needs to fight these guys because he doesn't have that much time left. Well, and right now he's ready to fight them. He can go fight Covington. He can go fight whoever, but he needs to call these guys out because they're not coming to him. Nobody really wants to fight him because he is a great fighter. He is a threat. He's scary to anybody. But he doesn't seem to have the stature that some of these other greats that we talk about, like St. Pierre and Conor and whoever else.
I like Tyron a lot in terms of his fighting style. I think what bothers me a lot about him is when he gets like, for example, a perfect example is exactly what happened. Here we go. He beats Till, destroys him. Okay, this destroys Till, and then everyone expects him to get on the mic, talk a little crap to Colby, set the fight up. And I don't care how good you think Colby is. Bottom line is that's beef. That's a storyline. That's a top guy in your division.
Colby's a good fighter.
Well, I'm just saying. You can say
I think
whatever
he's a good fighter anyway.
Yeah, he's got the skills. I'm just saying you can say whatever you want, but before we start calling out super fights, clear out your division. You have a guy calling you to the carpet at any moment, talking a lot of shit. And you know what? This is a perfect opportunity. He's been a heel far too many times. A lot of people don't like him in that way. Here's an opportunity for him to come in as a face, kick this guy's ass, talk some shit, you know what I mean? And get on level with some people that get some. This is where you build more fans, Tyron. And then he sits there. He knew everybody in the world was expecting it, and instead he's talking about his fucking song with Wiz Khalifa. It sucks. Whatever the hell he's talking about. Like, I mean, dude, yeah, make your money. Put out some tracks.
He's
do some
plugging
acting.
it.
Dude, do your thing,
That's
bro.
his work.
Do your thing, bro. I'm not saying
That's
that.
his work. He's plugging it.
Do your thing.
I can't blame the guy for plugging his work. I mean, he probably knows that Covington is going to be coming no matter what. So maybe he's looking down the road. Maybe he's thinking, if I call these guys out now, if I try setting that up now, I may not get this round. Maybe the winner of Ferguson Pettis fights the winner of this, but maybe he gets the next round, the winner of that.
Oh,
if he
Tyron's
beats
definitely.
Covington, maybe he's just trying to look ahead a little bit.
Moreover, too. I mean, and also too, Conor obviously
trying to get his name in the hat.
Oh yeah, everyone wants the red panty night anyway. Everyone wants the red panties. So I get
the guy's a champ. But the guy's a champ in a heavier weight class. I mean, you think if anyone gets a shot, it's him, right?
Yeah.
I mean, don't you want Conor or whoever to go up and Conor go up and get another belt? I mean, could you imagine? It'd be ridiculous.
It'd be ridiculous, but obviously he's got a few more hurdles to get to before we even start talking about that. And obviously, Tyron and his potential opponents, we can touch on that later. But bottom line is he's not fighting anybody in the rest of this year. We're looking at probably February, March till we see him come in. And I hope it's against Colby, but we'll see. Floyd Mayweather
It'd be a great fight if it was against Colby. Those two be a great fight.
100%.
That's for another day.
Yeah, definitely. Floyd Mayweather is supposedly ridiculously fighting Manny Pacquiao. I'm not going to get into all that by any means, how stupid that is, but they are supposed to fight in 2019. But what was interesting for this podcast and the MMA community is that he's not looking just to go fight Pacquiao. He wants to go have a warm-up fight, in Japan. He wants to put on a big Japanese combat sports event. And his opponent, he's looking at, obviously, boxers, but he doesn't mind fighting a kickboxer, fighting a MMA fighter. Why? Because they're not going to be ranked guys. He doesn't really care. He's looking just to get some, get some stacks in Japan in front of that crowd and build something. And it's whatever. But what I think is funny is that he's open to having kickboxing, MMA. So the Japanese, they love their freak show fights. They love that kind of stuff. For me, if you're going to pick a guy that the Japanese would go absolutely crazy for, and you get some crossover appeal there too, you can put in a Takanori Gomi in that mix. You got a guy, same weight class, similar ages, similar monikums in their particular sports. I mean, at one time, Gomi was considered the best ever, obviously, and obviously Mayweather's considered the best ever. You could have that whole storyline, and it wouldn't matter. He consider himself a little bit of a boxer too. You get him in there with some boxing gloves, the Japanese would go absolutely crazy. Okay, Mayweather gets an easy win, and off you go. I think and you could have a really interesting. I don't know if they would do it, but they could have a really interesting event in Japan that would kind of showcase some MMA, some kickboxing, some boxing, Japanese talent. Could be cool. Could be cool, Nate.
It sounds like something that the Japanese would consider. I mean, like the Japanese promotions of Pride, because they had a lot of fights that were crossing completely different styles and different weight classes and all sorts of different things that we just wouldn't see in the States due to commissions and other regulations. But I don't know about this fight. I don't know if Mayweather's going to fight any of these guys. I think that these promotions would put it on, but is Mayweather really going to fight a mixed martial arts fight? I doubt it.
No.
I don't see him getting in the fight with anybody, or does he Gomi go in there and put the boxing gloves on?
That's what I'm saying. There's no way he's going to agree to an MMA fight.
That's more likely of a situation.
Yeah, definitely not.
But I still don't see it happening. I don't know, maybe, but
I just think it's interesting that he's constantly, because he still needs to make bread. He's not good with money. He makes more money than any other combat sports athlete, yet is broke. Okay, so he needs money. This is a great way to get a big event going. And yeah, it wouldn't be MMA. He's definitely not doing an MMA fight. He could talk crap that he's training with Tyron or whatever the heck he's doing. Dude, I would love to see it personally. It's not going to happen. But it would be a boxing match with Gomi or whoever. I just throw out Gomi as a guy that I think, for me, that would be pretty interesting. But anyway, so moving on from that circus to another one, Eddie Alvarez is rumored to sign with One Championship, the Malaysian mixed martial art organization that is in a cage but also has Pride rules, which is a very interesting combination.
That is interesting. I have not heard of a cage having those types of rules before, because I thought part of the issue with those rules in the cage was that having the head stomps with the cage could lead to something, a more serious injury.
Well, with One Championship, what they do there is they have a warning track. And if you're within that, in the warning track area, you can't be stomped or kicked. But if you're
that's
in the
brilliant.
Area,
That's what the UFC should have.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
So, it's part of the ref that would, when the guy's downed and there's an opportunity there for a kick or something like that, the ref will say, free fight or something like that, signaling that you're clear to, go to town on him, which is pretty sick. But anyway,
that's great.
So Eddie, you could be seeing Eddie, if he does sign with One, and they got some money out there, if he does sign with One, obviously he's going to wreck shop. We're going to get some serious Eddie Alvarez highlights, and that'd be cool. I'm into that.
Absolutely.
Nate Diaz and Poirier have been going back and forth because they're supposed to fight coming up, and they want to fight at 165. They need we need a main event for UFC 230, and they're like, we got the UFC main event right here. Nate and I, 165-pound championship, making a whole new weight class. Dana, of course, is like, yeah, fuck you guys. No, that's not going to happen. But they are really about this, man. But what? So let's talk about this for a second. What do you think about the prospect of adding weight classes to the current MMA rule set? Such as...
I don't know I mean, I think you need to shift other ones if you're going to establish this one. I don't have a problem with doing the 155, 165, but you think you need to bump the 170 to 175 and go every 10. 175, 185, then what, a 195?
195.
I don't know. I think it's a little early for that. I mean, they need to get some more people in there at those weights to fill those positions.
If you were to do a 165-pound weight class, you would be taking some of the smaller guys from 170 and some of the the guys from 155 that hate the cut. It could be you'll be butchering those divisions, but you'd make a pretty stacked division of 165. It's not happening.
Yeah, I mean, but I also think at the same time you're diluting the product. It's like adding expansion teams to the NFL. You're diluting the teams itself. You're diluting the play on the field. You're diluting the divisions themselves by adding more championships because they need higher competition in these weight classes. When you start adding more and more champions, then what? Frickin' everybody's a champion. You got frickin' 10 champions.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't have everyone be a champion.
Well,
I mean, you need higher competition before you can establish these other ones. And to be frank, I don't think in those lower weight classes, I think they might have the competition to do the 155, 65, 75. I don't think they have the depth to do 185, 195, 205 and still have those divisions be really competitive. And then what? 215, 225, 235?
No.
I mean, well, yeah, but where does it end though? At 205 does it end?
Well,
or do you go 215 because there are some guys who have a hard time making that cut to 205.
Well, in my mind, what you do, the only division, I mean, 165, if you're going to do something like that, I agree. You would have to definitely shift to the 175. But I don't think that's a need, really. I think the need is you add like a 235 cruiserweight. That would be really good because there are a lot of heavyweight guys who are kind of like middle guys. That would be.
I have no problem with adding weight classes, but I just there's something about adding this 165 that is going to shift everything. Where you need to move that 170 175. I mean, I don't see how you have two weight classes five pounds apart. I mean, what's the deal with that?
They're not going to do it. I think it's just a
standard. Then what? You have like someone holding two belts of a weight class 5 pounds apart. That's a joke.
It's boxing. That's boxing. That's what that is.
Yeah.
So yeah. I mean, I just think it's funny that for once the fighters are kind of putting onus on UFC because you see it a lot where Dana will come out and say, oh, well, we gave him the contract, but he hasn't signed it yet. Or, they always put it they put it out in social media or out in public to put pressure on the fighter. Now it's kind of reversed. It's like, yeah, Dana, what are we doing? You know what I mean? Like, you need to, first of all, why isn't Nate and Poirier the main event anyway? I mean, that's the best fight on that card to begin with anyway. I mean, obviously, that's going to be a great fight. But besides that, yeah, put a little pressure on him. It's not happening. Clearly, you can't just add a weight class and put in. But I'll tell you what, I'd much rather see all of a sudden new weight class where it's like 165 than this interim belt nonsense, which they're handing out like Happy Meal toys, which is retarded. Okay, so for example, and this is the final news segment, really quick. They're looking at Gustav versus John Jones possibly for an interim title shot, but they're also talking about Gustav and Yoel Romero for the interim title. And it's like, Yoel Romero, the guy that can make weight at 185, clearly he should be a 205 pounder. But what? You don't make weight, and then all of a sudden now you get to be go for a title, which is a paper title anyway. I mean, it's so ridiculous. Either DC isn't the one that isn't the light heavyweight champion anymore, or he is. So he's not fighting the 205 anymore.
It's just capitalism. Now we have champ versus champ.
It's stupid. It's
make everybody the champ.
It's. I just think that I would love to see El Romero in 205. Clearly, love to see Gustafsson come back finally and fight. I'm all about all of that. Personally, I think John should fight him coming out of the gate here. That would be what everybody would want to see. But anyway, that's besides the point.
I don't think it is in the UFC's best interest if they want to promote John Jones to put his first fight back after this hiatus against Gustav. Because do I think Jones would win? Yeah, probably. But they want Jones to make a good splash, go in there, be someone who's pretty good, beat him up good, something that's not going to pose problems for Jones, then give Jones to whoever they want him to go against. Gustav, DC, Lesnar, whatever. But I don't see them putting him in a huge fight for his first one back. And I'll probably be wrong about that, but I don't think it's going to be.
Gustav's been on a hiatus himself, but, potential opponents aside for that, obviously that'll solidify itself in the next coming weeks. We'll see what happens, but, I just think it's kind of ridiculous. Again, interim belts, this and that. Like even look at the Colby thing, just to end it. They gave Colby an interim belt, and then they took it away from him. Like, I mean, what are we talking about? I mean, like either we give him a belt and he's something, or he's not. It's they gave him a belt long enough so he can go in front of Trump and give it to him. It's like, it's so stupid. But anyway.
Yeah, that's a pretty polarizing thing with the way politics are, and I don't know. I question if it was really genuine on Covington's part. Did he really want to meet Trump, or did he want to stir controversy to get his name mixed up in it? I don't know the answer to that.
Who knows? I mean, he's definitely playing the heel, and he knows that putting on the MAGA hat and playing that red hat role is definitely.
I love a good heel.
Yeah,
I love a good heel. So
he's doing the heel. He's doing the heel thing.
I don't love Colby Covington, but I do love a good heel.
Yeah, of course.
Having one out there is always a good thing.
Coming up next Sunday, we have one of the biggest fights in MMA with 155-pound champion Khabib Nurmagomedov against Conor, the champ. Huge fight. A lot of people are talking about this being, not only is it going to be for a championship, but could be for the title of the best lightweight of all time. But about 10 years ago, there was a tournament in Japan where they almost decided that, didn't they, Nate?
Yeah, that was the Pride Lightweight Tournament, which followed the Pride Middleweight Tournament, which is 205 in Pride, the Pride Heavyweight Tournament, two of the greatest tournaments that the sport's ever had. And to be honest, I think that lightweight tournament might have been the best of the three, with many of the very best fighters in the world at the time. And I don't think anybody would argue with that, Rich.
So, and when you look at the legacy of Pride, Bushido during Bushido 9, the tournament, was one of the best all around. Now, we're not going to even get into the whole thing, but one of the best Pride events that's ever been held. I mean, you're talking about a stacked middleweight division that they were trying to promote and have a tournament on that side, as well as this lightweight tournament with, again, you're saying, various champions from other promotions coming in, the history, a fantastic event where you had...
And that event, just for those of you at home, that event is Pride Bushido 9 from September 25th, 2005, if you want to find it online. One of the best Pride cards, like you said.
I just want to break down who was in that tournament really quick. You got Takanori Gomi and his prime, okay? The face of really the Japanese fighting at the time when it came out with Pride. The Crusher Kawajiri, a Shuto champion at the time with history of his own with Gomi. Yves Edwards, who, if the UFC didn't mess around with the lightweight division during that time, really could have been and should have been a lightweight champion in his own right in the cage, but UFC had a problem with the lightweight division at the time. Joachim Hansen, a man that beat Gomi and was one of two men that beat him at that time. Joachim Hansen, Hellboy, Jens Pulver, the inaugural lightweight champion for the UFC. Hayato Mahasakurai, considered one of the best pound-for-pound middleweights, coming down to the lightweight division to fight during this tournament to make it happen. I mean, just incredible fighters up and down the line. At Bushido 9, you had to fight twice in one night. Then the finals went down at Shockwave 4 months later, where Gomi defeated Mahasakurai in the finals to be the lightweight champion and win the tournament.
Well, something else about that card is we're talking about the 155-pound weight class tournament. There was also a 185-pound weight class tournament going on that same night.
Right.
So here you have Dan Henderson knocking out Ryo Chonin and Ikuhisa Minowa the same night. No, I'm sorry, Akihiro Gono the same night. So you have great fights in different weight classes.
1,000%.
Anyway, so here we have two guys right now who would definitely qualify, and other guys. I mean, let's be fair. Ferguson and Pettis would also probably qualify for this tournament, and maybe some others like Poirier and whoever. But these were the best of the best at the time, and there were some other guys over in the UFC at the time that would probably argue that their hat should be in the ring, but this was the best we could do. And so what do you think about if you put Khabib Nurmagomedov in this tournament with these guys, Takanori Gomi, Kawajiri, Hansen, Eve Edwards, Sakurai, Pulver? This is the best of the best.
Well, in my mind, when you look at some of the best, obviously this Sunday we're going to figure out, and obviously you got to look back on legacies. I mean, I think they're still kind of cementing themselves, Conor, Khabib, in terms of a GOAT legacy, but they are at the top of the food chain. There's no question. And you got these two guys, but there's another guy that was fighting during that same exact time that many consider to be the greatest lightweight ever, the prodigy, the first prodigy. Now, we're not talking about Aaron Pico, guys. We're talking about B.J. Penn. And B.J. Penn, probably the greatest lightweight of all time, right up there with the rest of these guys. So in my mind...
Absolutely.
Well,
Penn could be number one. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's no doubt about that. I think the other guys who are in that argument would be Gomes, would be Hansen, would be Conor, Khabib. I mean, that's where those guys are right now. They're right there. And one of those names are going to come out of that, fight as the guy who's going to be there among those best.
So when you look at the tournament itself, you got 8 gentlemen: Gomi, Kawajiri, Mock, Jens, Joaquim, Yves Edwards. And then you have 2 other guys, Acevedo and Kotani. Acevedo, they were trying
Acevedo's a game competitor. He was probably a 6 or 7 seed in that tournament.
Well, I would think he's probably, the 7th seed. I would put him at the 7th seed myself.
Crazy Horse Bennett.
Well, he was on the alternate. I'm not really counting the alternate fight, right. But Crazy Horse Burnett was there with what's his face, Mishima, Snoopy, and Crazy Horse. I mean, he's always funny to watch. But in terms of those 3 guys, and the Kotani, who made his lightweight Pride debut at that tournament, that was his first Pride fight, was Kotani against Acevedo. And Acevedo, they were trying to make him they're trying to have him be the Chute Box representation at the time at 155.
Well, he was the only one they had that they could go with at the time, and they wanted to represent them.
1,000%.
They're one of the best in the world.
So in my mind, here's how I look at it. When I want to insert these 3 guys, Khabib, Conor, and BJ, into the mix at this tournament, and I'm a fight promoter, I look at it as this: Kotani is off the board, Acevedo is off the board, and that leaves one more spot, and I'm taking Yves off the board. And I'm taking Yves off the board. The only reason why is that Yves didn't have the pedigree or the history with the other fighters as now you could really take Joaquim or Yves off of there, in my mind.
No way. You wouldn't take Hansen off the board?
No.
I wouldn't take Hansen off the board.
I'm not taking Hansen. I'm just saying that that was my debate with myself. Like, either one of those guys I could take off. I
would say possibly Yves. I would say that would either be Yves, Kawajiri, or Pulver. One of those 3 would be the ones to come off the board. I would probably say Kawajiri, but he was a big fighter in Japan, so I don't see that happening. No. I would say between Yves and Pulver, probably Yves as well. But that's not an easy decision.
Well, the reason why I'd keep Kawajiri on the board was he's a Shuto champion at the time, considered a fantastic Japanese fighter, and
Yves was a really well-established UFC fighter at the time. He had beaten a lot of guys in the UFC before going into that tournament.
1,000%. I'm just saying that he hasn't held a belt. I mean, he had a hook and shoot championship once.
I agree.
Never held a belt. I'm just looking at it as a hard decision.
That's in Japan.
The
Shuto is in Japan, so that's where it is. That's where he's known.
Right. So hard decision. So for me, taking Yves off the board. So we have a tournament. We have a tournament bracket of Gomi, Kawajiri, Sakurai, Jens Pulver, Joaquim Hansen, Conor McGregor, Khabib, and BJ. And that, my friend, is Murderer's Row. And in my mind, if I'm looking at it myself, I don't know how you thought of it, Nate. And please jump in anytime you want, my man. But for me, I looked at it as a fight promoter. I got these 8 guys, a legacy situation, best fighters in the world, for sure. Different history.
Well, this is a matchmaker's dream come true, but at the same time, it is not an easy task to try to get the best fights you can out of these great fighters. When you have people with such different skill sets, like Hansen and Sakurai, you don't know what you're going to get when you throw those 2 styles together. Whereas I think people had a pretty good idea of what was going to happen with Musashi McDonald last night, there's going to be some stand-up punching, there's going to be some ground and pound, possibly some submissions. But with Hansen, he's such a strong stand-up fighter who wants it to be there. Sakurai's rounded in different ways. You never know what you get with things like that.
For me, now, how I broke it out was I put him into the tournament. Okay, this is how as a fight, I'm thinking of it as a fantasy fight promoter. I would like to see the tournament play out like this, personally, me. And and you can jump in or disagree, however you think, but I would do it like this. I would keep the first round, Gomi Kawajiri. I would keep that matchup. You got the Shuto champion, the Pride champion, history there. As a promoter, that's a great fight, especially for the. I would also do, for me, now everything's going to be different. Now we drop some guys off, so I would put in Penn versus Pulver, the rematch. That would be an awesome first round for me. Obviously, history there. You know what I mean? They started the division themselves. History there, and they didn't have the rematch until at that point. So that would have been a fantastic way to have both of them in there and a great matchup. I would put in the Scandinavian Hellboy Hansen against Conor McGregor in the first round. That is
absolutely.
A barn burner. That's a barn burner matchup, Nate.
A barn burner.
Barn burner.
A barn burner. No, absolutely. That is absolutely the fight you want. You want that fight, and I also want Hayato Maha Sakurai versus BJ Penn. Two very strong skill sets, two very well-rounded fighters, two fighters who are not afraid to stand in the pocket and mix it up, two guys who want action, seek it out, and go for it. But I agree, Hansen versus McGregor would be where most eyes would look on that card. And then who else you have? You have
Well, I had
What else did you have? Did you have Penn against Pulver and then
I had Penn against
Khabib
Pulver.
Sakurai?
Yeah, I had Khabib against Sakurai, and that's only because they were the only two guys left. Not necessarily. I think there were storylines with the other three matchups, and still a great matchup. Still a great matchup with those two. Obviously Khabib against anybody would be interesting amongst these guys, but for me, I put Khabib. The reason why I thought that would be interesting is Maha was a bigger man. Khabib's a bigger guy. So then you wouldn't have that. Khabib wouldn't have the size advantage that he tends to have in his fights. And I think that'd be interesting to see. And I think a big deal. See, for me, I had those as the top as the matchups for the tournament. And I can tell you who I had to win. But for me, the big deal is putting Conor or Khabib into a Pride tournament fight package presents a unique situation. What I say by that is you have to fight twice in one night, the 10-minute round, the 5-minute round, and the rule set. I think that favors one guy over another. I personally feel, I think McGregor flourishes in that environment. Not necessarily in the cardio standpoint,
I agree,
but in terms of a fight with the creativity, the stomps, the kicks, the no elbows.
Absolutely. I agree with that.
And I feel that strong wrestlers obviously can do well in any organization. But with the ring being open, how you don't have the cage to really grind a dude and put him into a corner, I think that hampers Khabib a bit. Because, yeah, you can go for that power double and get a guy up, but if you go through the ring, you get reset to the middle. You give a BJJ guy on the bottom more room to work. You also don't have elbows, so you have to really extend the arms and put yourself in a situation. If you want to bring that ground and pound, you're putting yourself in possibly open yourself up for more submissions, which I feel is a detriment to Khabib. Not to say he couldn't do very well in this. I'm not saying that at all. But in my mind, for the sake of this tournament argument, for me, I say Maha beats Khabib in that first round matchup because of that reason, in a close fight.
Yeah, I mean, I think Khabib handles Sakurai pretty convincingly there. Khabib's ground and pound, Khabib's sambo, I think is probably stronger than anybody on the card. I think he's the best grappler on this card. I think he has the best ground and pound on this card. I think he goes far in this tournament. And I think he dispatches of Sakurai in a very, very convincing decision. Doesn't seem like Khabib is finishing many opponents these days, so I would say Khabib takes that.
So you think Khabib beats Maha pretty handily? Okay, fair
I
enough.
think Khabib beats Maha. I think obviously Gomi beats Kawajiri. I think Conor beats Hansen. I think Conor finishes Hansen. I think Hansen is a great fighter who gives Conor a tough fight. I think he taxes Conor, and I don't know who fights who next. I think
if you look at the bracket, your bracket would put Khabib against Conor in that second fight of the night, going into the semifinal.
Well, now we're asking who wins against Khabib and Conor, and that's our next segment. So
no, I don't want to mention that. See, that's why. Well, personally, me, I
would say the winner of that fight does not win the tournament. I think Takanori Gomi wins that tournament.
Regardless of Penn and everybody being in there, Gomi wins the whole thing?
Yes.
I have Conor winning the whole thing. Khabib's out of the way in that first round in a tough fight. Because I feel with Maha and Khabib, who handled Maha? It's strikers. They got into him with boxing.
You think Sakurai beats Khabib?
I think so. In the Pride rule set at the time, Maha being...
I think you're freaking nuts.
Well, with his... We're going to see more on Sunday. We're going to see more on this Sunday coming up. But I feel that Khabib's been touched. I feel Khabib kind of stands with a little hand, with his head up a bit. And I feel that lends itself better to striking. I think Khabib doesn't have the size advantage against Maha. And when you're talking about the Pride rule set being a factor, I'm not saying Maha just destroys Khabib. And you're right. I think it's a very close fight. I think you're right. I think Khabib could beat him too. But I think Conor, in a Pride situation with that rule set, I think it's a big advantage. I think he really takes advantage of it. I don't like the two fights in one night. I think it's a problem. If you had either way,
it's a problem for Conor. I think
it's a problem with Conor, man. I don't. The 10-minute round could be a problem with any of these guys. I mean, especially Conor. I don't know.
That could be a problem for Khabib too. I know he shows good conditioning in a 5-round fight, but who knows fight after fight? I mean, that's different.
So BJ Penn isn't even in the conversation right now.
BJ Penn, I think, at his best, might be the best fighter on this card, and if he fights his very best on every fight, he could probably win the whole thing. But BJ Penn, in my opinion, is too inconsistent to be considered the very best of all time. Because I've seen fights where he goes out there and does not look great. I've seen fights where he goes out there and looks out of shape. I've seen fights where he goes out there and looks sloppy. And maybe these are all the same fights I'm talking about, but the flashes of brilliance that you see in fights like his fight, like when he fought Gomi or when he knocked out Kyle Uno. But he's had fights where he just faded. And I think of the St. Pierre fight. I think the Pulver fight, where he seems to where he seems to fade a bit. And I've seen him be inconsistent, so I don't see him putting together two great fights in a night. I see one of those fights not going his way. I see him losing to somebody, whoever that might be. Conor, Gomi, Sakurai, whoever.
Well, 155, he was a true martial artist and fought at any weight class you wanted, which was fantastic with BJ. And clearly, when he fought some of those less than memorable fights, so to speak, I think they're all at 170, kid. I think he was a bit at 155. He was at he is his most optimal situation at 155. And with Penn, if you look at it, for me, the only reason why I don't have Penn in the finals is I have Gomi beating him in the semifinals because he fought Gomi, in 2003 at Rage of the Cage and under unified rules.
Well, that was before Gomi really became great, and I know it was pretty close, but. It really wasn't probably 2005, late 2004, 2005 was where he was great. And Gomi did fast. By 2008, he was kind of well past his prime.
Well, I think Gomi's never been that great in a cage in the unified rules. I think that's always been a problem for him. Whereas he's kind of flourished in the more open rule set of Pride Ring. And I think that's the big difference when you're looking at our Conor situation and a Khabib. I'd love to see one of those guys in Pride, clearly, or in that style of rule set for sure. But
Conor does seem like more of a Pride fighter than Khabib. Khabib seems like more of a cage fighter, where I pile you up in the corner and beat you up.
Exactly. So I think that's, in terms of sake of it, that's why I had Conor winning the whole thing. I had him beating Maha or whatever Khabib in a Pride situation. I had Penn. Getting beat by Gomi in a rematch from their 2003 Rage in the Cage or Rumble on the Rock fight, where now it's under Pride rules. His hometown gets it done, setting up a Gomi-Conor finals at Shockwave. And, you know, Conor being the bigger man, better striker, I think he wins. That's you know, now he's fresh in Shockwave. Assuming the cardio hands holds up for Conor, I like him the most. I do.
I would not be surprised if Conor won that whole thing. I would not be surprised if BJ Penn put together 2 great fights and won the whole thing. I just think, I mean, I guess I've seen Gomi perform like this, so that's what I'm going with. But let's just get right to the chase here, Rich. UFC 229, one of the biggest events ever in the sports history, one of the biggest fights in the sports history. For all the marbles, Conor vs. Khabib, what more could we ask for as fans? What do you think's going to happen? Let's get it going.
We're going to have the appetizers, obviously, before we get to the main course. We're going to get into Michelle Waterson and Felice Herring. Number 7, Michelle Waterson against number 9, Felice Herring at strawweight 115. It's a contenders match. These girls are, trying to climb the ranks. Waterson's trying to get back into that title contention. Herring constantly feels that she's disrespected. But in my mind, if you don't put on exciting fights, ladies, it's hard to garner a lot of attention. I mean, obviously, they're fabulous-looking women. That helps with their attention, clearly. But we're talking about fighting. We're talking about the skill set. I think Waterson is a better striker. And I feel she wins, but a very close decision striking. I feel it's going to be a very close decision. Not a very memorable fight. No offense to the ladies.
Yeah, I think this fight is just really going nowhere. These two ladies are both good fighters. They're both good stand-up practitioners. I just don't see them really pouring it on like they should be pouring it on. I see it going to decision. I don't see it finishing.
Who do you have winning it? Waterson?
I think Waterson. So next we have Derek Lewis and Alexander Volkov. Derek Lewis, we know from the Nagano fight. We know that Derek Lewis has been knocking people out. Volkov is on a winning streak. He's beaten Struve. He's beaten some others.
Verdum. Roy Nelson, big
Roy Nelson.
I love Roy Nelson, dude.
So, I don't know. I love Roy Nelson too. It's just unbelievable. What do you see going on with this one, Rich?
Well, I think Derek Lewis's big problem is the injury issue with him and his cardio issue. Okay, the guy's got top 5 power.
He'll knock your teeth right down your throat.
I mean, the Black Beast. They don't call him that because he's wants to hug you and hang out. He's gonna kill you. He's the Black Beast. But you know what really pissed me off about the Black Beast was that Nagano fight. You got 2 heavy strikers, big time matchup, and here we go. And Black Beast won, but in one of the most unmemorable, boring fights you will ever see. Okay. Awful.
It was embarrassing because that's one of those fights where you go and you tell a non-fan, you're like, watch this one. And then you're just embarrassed because it's like, this fight sucks.
Yeah, you just lost fans. You try to bring somebody on with that kind of fight. You end up like they sit next to you in your house and you're like, yeah, whatever, I'll get a beer. And that sucks. But, Derek Lewis's problem is it's the back, man. Like, he's a bigger guy. I see it's going to be the same problem. A round 3 TKO by Volkov. I feel that he knows what's going to happen with Black Beast. I think he's going to pull him in the deep waters a little bit. And then at that point, it's going to be too much for Beast. I mean, if Beast doesn't take care of him in the first round, Nate, he's not going to have it for him. That's what I think.
I think Beast needs to finish it early, and that's the obvious. But I think Volkov takes him to a decision. Volkov wins by a decision. I think it is pretty convincing. I know Derek Lewis is a good fighter. I just don't see this being a good matchup for him. I think it's a terrible matchup for him, and I think Volkov takes him the distance and wins.
So now we move on to the third fight of the night, OSP number 7, Ovince St. Preux against number 12, Dominic Reyes.
This is the coming out party right here. Dominic Reyes, this kid's been lighting people up. 9-0, first round knockouts. What more can you ask for out of the guy? He's on the come here. Here he comes. Ovince St. Preux, he's next.
Well, Ovince St. Preux, always a solid fighter. Very, very, obviously, clearly gifted athletically. He's pulling Von Flue chokes out. I mean, he's definitely got a pedigree.
Multiple Von Flue chokes too. Right?
Yeah, which is like the lottery. It's craziness. And you know what?
It's like pulling out Gogo Platas.
Exactly. Doesn't happen in MMA. And and this guy definitely certainly, clearly, has a ground game, can strike, very well-rounded fighter. But I don't know, and I don't want to disrespect OSP when I say this, okay? And I know when you look at...
He's getting knocked out.
Right. No, he's getting knocked out. But when I say about him... he's getting knocked out. He's getting knocked out, Nate. But
So praise him quick, and then we'll say he's getting knocked out.
Well, I'm just saying... I'm not going to praise him. What I'm trying to say is...
He's a good fighter. No. I'm just trying to be short here. No. OSP is a good fighter. He's a game competitor. He's a number 7 fighter for a reason. He gave John Jones a good fight, which is more than most people can say. The guy deserves our respect. With that said, he's next on the list. Reyes is going to cross him off.
Right, I completely agree. I just find that OSP in general, when I think about it, first thing on my mind with OSP, it's not the Von Flue chokes or anything else. He's boring. I find it to always be boring. And Reyes, if you could put it on him early, knock him out. I just think that for me, second round KO, Dominic Reyes moves into the top 10, and off we go.
I agree. Now we have Tony versus Anthony Pettis. Tony Ferguson, we know, of course, from winner of UFC 13, has been pretty much unstoppable ever since. Anthony Pettis, owner of one of the best knockout highlights in the history of the sport, of his jumping kick to the face over Benson Henderson. Also an amazing fighter.
Wheaties box.
Ferguson versus Pettis is... On most nights, this would be the headliner.
Oh, 1,000%. And UFC did a great job here. They leave Ferguson on the card, co-main, and he gets that co-main notoriety, and he's basically the safety valve for the main event. If one of those two guys can make the fight, Tony's in, and off we go. That's what this is. Okay, I mean, it's going to be a great fight, great matchup, but smart matchmaking by UFC on this one.
Well, they've been doing that quite a bit lately. I mean, they've been burned on too many main events. Someone getting sick, trying to cut weight, someone missing weight, someone whatever, getting hurt, and then they're stuck with, Oben St. Preux versus Dominic Reyes as the main event, which they don't want.
Yeah.
So putting these guys on there, getting that double main event, so somebody can swipe out at the last minute, because if one of them had to pull right now and you put Ferguson or Pettis in there right now, nobody would complain too much, even though it is a big letdown not having these guys. You can live with that. Not having either, that's a big problem. So I'm glad that they've caught on to that issue. I'm glad that they've remedied that problem. So I like having this double main event like this, because we know who could fight next after this. This is almost like a little mini tournament right here with these 4 people. With these guys fighting. Exactly.
Little mini tournament. We got our own Bushido 9 going on right now, because you can really consider this to be a tournament level fight with Nate and Poirier, soon after can be involved with that tournament. Because I feel, let's say the fights go off as planned, Tony, Anthony, Showtime, Khabib, Conor, they all go off without a hitch, no problem. Then you got Poirier, Nate. Poirier has a very strong case to be the next guy in line to fight the title too.
I agree.
People think about Ferguson. Poirier's right there. So I think it comes down to this fight versus Nate and Poirier. Whatever winner is more impressive, assuming Khabib and Conor isn't some wild draw, crazy split decision thing. As long as it's not like that, where it's an immediate rematch, it's whoever's one of those guys, because they really got to move forward with this logjam. Whoever's the winner, the most impressive guy is going to get the next shot between those two fights.
Yeah, it's really hard to tell where it's going to go with Conor and Khabib after this. I could see them fighting 2 more times, but doesn't mean that their next 2 fights are against each other. But I could see them fighting 2 more times for sure.
If it goes to if it's a close decision or some craziness happens, it would have to happen. But yeah, if there's a convincing winner in the main event, either Tony, Showtime, or Poirier, Nate is going to be the next, in the mix. So how do you feel this is going to go between Showtime and Ferg?
Well, when it comes to having the skill sets and the fireworks, nobody does it better than Pettis. Pettis is one of the most exciting fighters that we'll ever see in the sport. But to me, it kind of goes back to BJ Penn a little bit. Like, I never really know what I'm going to get with Pettis. And Pettis at his best, I think, wins this fight. Ferguson is very consistent. Ferguson is a very solid fighter. Most of the things that Pettis does, Ferguson does just as well, and there are things that Ferguson does do better. I think Ferguson has better stand-up at times. Which way is it going to go? It's this one. I would like to say it's a toss-up, but I think Ferguson wins this one. I think Ferguson wins it by a decision. I think it's a unanimous decision. I've seen Pettis fade in later rounds too many times. I think it's going to go that way.
In my mind, Showtime Pettis, obviously great skill set. But in my mind, I feel Tony Ferguson is Showtime 2.0. I think everywhere that Pettis is good, Ferguson is better. I just feel that's the case. You know, even from creativity standpoint, from a jiu-jitsu standpoint, from a striking standpoint. And then you got a situation where Ferguson is the taller man, the longer reach. You know, that's what I think. And you know, in Anthony, he had a downslope. Now he's on his way back up. He's had some fight of the night fights with Chisia and the Diamond. I mean, he lost to the Diamond, but it was still a fight of the night performance.
Well, that just is. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know what I get with him.
Right,
you know,
exactly.
I can't rely on him.
You can't rely on him.
At his best, I think he beats Ferguson, but I just don't think it's going to happen.
Ferguson is, like I said, I think Ferguson is Showtime 2.0 with the creativity, with the striking, even the creativity with the grappling. You know, you see the 10th Planet, rubber guard, the spotter. It's very. He's got a lot of strengths, and he's unorthodox from Jump Street, from his crazy training in the mountains with the wild shit he does. I don't know what he's doing out there, but for me, I think Ferguson's better everywhere, and for me, I see Ferguson beating him in a second round submission. That's how I see it. He has something to prove. He has missed the boat on the big dance. Not always his fault, but he's missed the boat a number of times on the big dance, and he's going to put a stamp on this one, and he's going to be the one that get the shot between Khabib and Conor, the winner. It's going to be Tony. It's his destiny. It's his destiny not necessarily to win that belt, but to get in that championship fight finally. I think it's his time. He might be coming back a little too early from his crazy weird injury where he tripped and fell or whatever with his knee. That's a factor. If the knee's not 100%, Pettis could exploit that. That's for sure. But I'm assuming he's still good. He don't step into the cage if you're not 100%. Ferguson knows what's at stake. I don't think he would come back unless he thought he was ready. And in that mind, I see him second round submission, winner Ferguson. That's how I see it.
I guess that brings us here to the main event, Rich.
Khabib Nurmagomedov against Conor McGregor. It's here. It's finally here, Nate. For me, it's going to be Christmas morning on Saturday morning when I get up when next week when this fight goes on. And to be honest, I don't trust it's going to happen until that goes down. Until these dudes weigh in, I can't trust it. You know, Khabib, he's had problems making the weight, buddy. You know what I'm saying? I could see something crazy happening. It's just too good to be true in my mind. You know what I mean? I feel like,
right.
You know, I'm going to be so psyched when the official weigh-ins go down and we have a fight come Saturday. I'm going to be through the freaking moon about it. But getting into it, bud, how do you see it going down? Nate, you got it. Let's go, baby.
This fight, I think, well, I mean, let's just throw the obvious things out of the way. You have classic striker versus grappler. Conor being the striker. Conor needs a knockout. Khabib wants to take it to the ground. Khabib wants to beat him up. These are all the things that we know. Who does what? How does it happen? One thing you have here with these guys is both of these guys have outstanding footwork. And they have, like, opposite types, too. Like, Conor is very good at circling, retreating, using the distance. Khabib's very good at cutting you off, at getting his feet in front of you, getting his body on you, taking you down, beating you up. I think this fight comes down to footwork, Rich. Khabib, I don't think that the low kick's going to work with Khabib like he used on Diaz. Khabib doesn't move like that. Khabib doesn't rely on his shot like that. He's not that type of fighter. I think Khabib is going to try to cut him off, but Khabib has also made the mistake of coming in one too many times, coming straight in. I think he comes straight in. But Khabib, to win this fight, Khabib needs to circle right. He needs to get his body on Conor's left arm. He needs to take him down from there. He can't go in the other way. Conor can get his left on his ear. Khabib can't take those shots.
So how do you see it? How do you see it ultimately playing out?
Who do I think wins?
Yes.
I think Khabib has a hard time taking him down at first. I think Conor gets in his head a little bit. I think Khabib takes him down near the end of the first round, beats him up a bit. I think they come out again. I think Conor knocks him out in the second round.
Conor knocks him out second round. No one would be happier than me if that was to happen. I'm a fan of both guys. Let's be real about it. But you know what? I'm a Conor.
Well, I do feel like I like watching two of my favorite fighters fight here, and I should have said that beforehand because they really are two of the best. Mm-hmm. They are the best right now.
100%. In my mind, I think Khabib, his last two fights with Edson Barboza and Al Quinta to a lesser extent, really set up a little bit of a blueprint as to a couple. They left out a couple chinks in the armor with Khabib a bit. I think Edson put some hands on Khabib early. Whereas I think you're right. If those are your Conor McGregor left hands, his lead uppercut. Okay, he puts those situations. If it's him with that accurate shots, I think Khabib is in deep shit. And that's what I was saying before with Sakurai to a lesser degree. He leaves his head up too much. He doesn't mind getting hit. But what you always hear about Conor is that people underestimate his power until you actually get in there and get that power. And it's out of the ordinary levels at 155, 145 for him. I think he loses at 170 personally, but that's a different argument altogether. But for me, the power is certainly there. And there's no question that Conor has seen those and has game planned around it. But here's my problem with the whole situation with Conor. He's been out of the game for too long at this point. You can train in the gym as much as you like, but, you're not in the highlights. You're not in an actual event. It's like, you can play as many, AAA games as you can, but when, you have to get into an actual game, it's a bit different. And I think if you're talking about a Conor at a regular clip, every 3 or 4 months he's fighting, he's doing it, he's in training camps, I like it a hell of a lot more than him. He's, obviously he's in shape. Obviously he's been training. But, even Bisping's been saying, where are these high-level wrestlers he's bringing into camp? He should be bringing in nothing but high-level wrestlers now. The guys he's wrestling could be high-level wrestlers, but you know what? In my mind, he's not doing it. You know what I mean? I don't think he's prepared enough for the kind of pressure that it could put on him. And yes, if Conor doesn't get him early, it's going to be a long night for Conor, and that's how I think it's going to be. I think he doesn't have the takedown stopping ability, not for a whole fight. First round, maybe, they're drier, they're fresher, sure. But eventually in a 5-round fight against a Khabib, you're going to the ground. And this guy has said he's not giving Conor an easy way out. He wants to rearrange his face. He wants to crush him. I've never heard these terminology used to another man in a fight. He wants to change his face. That's what he wants to do, and I believe he's going to do it. I think
Go ahead.
I believe he's going to do it, Nate. I've not seen anything with Conor to show me how good he is off his back, how good he is to defend takedowns against this kind of guy. This guy's wrestling bears at 9. What is he doing? He's always been doing his wrestling, and that's what happens. One of Conor's greatest strengths, in my mind, is his kicks. He has that wide stance. He throws the small low kicks to the thigh. He sets everything up off the kicks, in my mind. The spinner, he likes the body kicks, the side kicks, the spinning kicks. He's not doing any. If he's smart, he's not doing any of that shit against Khabib, man. He's not doing it, which is gonna leave him just to strike with the hands. He certainly can do that, but it's less for Khabib to worry about. If Khabib could take a shot and get him down to the ground, it's gonna be heavy ground and pound all night, and I see Khabib grinding out Conor. 5th round TKO win. Too much ground and pound. It's going to be your classic Couture, Matt Hughes level grind fest in the cage. That's how I see it. That's how I see it happening. And there's no other way around. I always focus more on the grappler. I think the grappler takes the fight where he wants to go.
I could see it happening like that. I could. And to be frank, I still have questions about Khabib. I've seen him. See, the thing about Khabib is I see him demoralizing people in that ring. And I see him do that more than maybe any other fighter that I can think of. He's had quite a few opponents who look like they just did not want to be in there anymore. They look like they'd rather be fed to alligators than be in that ring with him anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
And I just don't see that with other people. Then again, these people that he's fighting, these guys are not as good as the guys that Conor is fighting.
Yep.
These guys are not as good. And let's just put it out there. Conor is fighting higher competition. He's never had a fight nearly as big as his career. And to be honest with you, I think the fight's going to be a little too big for him. I think he's going to have adrenaline dump. I think he's going to have issues. This fight is not the biggest fight that Conor's had this year. Conor's had bigger fights than this within the last 18 months. This is tenfold bigger than anything Khabib's ever seen in his entire life.
He seems very stoic, Khabib. Yes, but you're 26-0. We still got the O on the record. Getting that first loss is always a big deal for guys. And and Conor rather. Yes, he lost before in UFC before he got to UFC, but his first loss really is against Nate, and that really how he handled that showed a lot about his character. And obviously, I'm looking forward to seeing that with Khabib, because Khabib's not going to go his whole life undefeated, but I think he's going to win on Sunday. But how he handles a loss is going to be a big deal. I don't think the fight's going to be too big for him. I think he's been waiting for this for a long time. I think he's a hungry fighter. I think you got a factor of now with Conor. He's even said it. He doesn't have to fight for money anymore. He said it a million times. I don't have to fight for money anymore. This guy could stop fighting right now and be good. And like everybody says, it's much harder to get out of silk sheets and a beautiful bed and have to go fight a killer like Khabib, where Khabib is still gnawing at the tooth, waiting for his shot. This is his time. And he already fought MSG. Yeah, it was a clusterfuck with that whole main event, and he finally fought Iaquinta off the couch, basically. Not off the couch, but you know what I'm saying. It was some wild thing. But that was a big moment for him, and he got it done in MSG. You could have easily fought, what if Al Iaquinta, who was game, beat him? I mean, his career's over. His career is over at that point. You know what I mean? He got it done. And, obviously this is his biggest fight, clearly. But I don't think it's going to be too much for him, man. I think he knows the most dangerous time for him is that first round. And if he can get past that first round and get that takedown, I don't know, man. Like, have you ever seen Conor? I mean, you saw Conor off his back against Chad Mendes a little bit. Everyone wants to talk about Chad Mendes coming off the couch to fight Conor during that fight, this and that. You still got a guy who's wrestling his whole life, took him down, had him in his guard. It wasn't like Conor was really threatening there. I mean, I don't know. I mean, like, he's not a jiu-jitsu guy. You know what I mean? He's not a strong wrestler. I mean, he's not. And for me, especially in UFC cage, the wrestler dictates the action. And when you got probably the strongest wrestler in the league going up against you, it's an issue, man. It's an issue.
So, you have Khabib winning a 5th-round TKO. I have Conor winning a 2nd-round knockout.
Yes, sir. Now, going forward here, we're going to
That's what we got.
Hell yeah. And what I want to do is, just like any of the pickup segments you see on these other sports shows, I like to keep track of these so we can let people know, yeah, we can start showcasing our win percentage on these predictions, because we're not pulling the shit out of our ass. I tell you right now, that's not happening. You know what I mean? Like, we're looking at it. So
are we going off of our predictions that we made before last week? Because I think I'm 2-0 here.
yeah. I mean, we did have a little show. We did a little level 0 show between Nate and I, and yes, I was wrong on both accounts between the Mousasi, McDonald, and the Rampage Vanderlei fight. Yes, I was wrong, but we can hey,
get used to it.
My man. Well, Nate, thanks for coming out, man. I appreciate it, dude.
Thank you, Rich. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next week.
All right, brother.
Like what you just heard? Check us out on Twitter at TBMMAPod or on Instagram at Trading Blows. You can also find us on Facebook at Trading Blows Podcast. And please rate and subscribe on iTunes or wherever you're listening.